Hi, it says we're live, Murph.
Yes, I can confirm this.
So, hi, and welcome to TSG Live Talking Trains. I'm one of the hosts. You know me as John.
I'm the co-host.
He's the real host. He's the smart person in the room.
Yeah.
This is Murph, our co-host. Hi. He's wearing his very stylish hat today.
I am.
And I'm wearing my very stylish shirt today. He'll have his very stylish shirt next time, I think. And if you look, it kind of looks like this. Am I doing that right?
Yeah, you are. It's there.
It's there.
Yeah, you're blocking my face. Maybe that's good.
I think I look better with the camera off, so that might be good. So anyway, we're hanging out here. It's September 18th, another third Wednesday of the month, which is when we always come on. And we have an interesting topic to discuss today, which is small modules or T-TRAK. And people watching are like, what's T-TRAK? I've heard that, but I don't know what it is. Well, by the time we're done talking about it, you'll know what it is. So
that's right.
You're kind of like in that group a little bit, huh?
Well, I tried Fremo for a while. I was really interested in the ops capabilities of getting people together from all over the country or whatever. And I thought that would work out great. It didn't really work out for me. Part of it too was going, I've got a big HO layout at home, and for Fremo, I was doing Fremo N. So as a matter of starting some N scale stuff, and I don't like the idea of rubber gauging myself. Just too much going on. At any rate, Fremo for me was a big step up from N-TRAK, and I'm anxious to hear about this T-TRAK thing. So it seems pretty cool and a really great option for people wanting to get into the hobby. So
yeah, and that's really what this is about. So to back up just a little bit, so Sydney and I were at something called E24. That was the gathering of a whole bunch of modular N-scalers in Evanston, Wyoming. The original one happened, I think, 3 years ago, and I actually covered it. I did a layout tour video of this. At the time, it was supposed to be the world's, they were trying to go for, and I don't know if they actually were or not, but it was supposed to be the world's biggest gathering of Fremo modules ever in history. And then E24 was to build on top of that. And I believe we're going to be doing one in 3 more years that we're calling E27 already.
Oh, cool.
And so, but at E24, the Fremo people invited T-TRAK people and N-TRAK people in. And N-TRAK is a whole different thing altogether. We have a local N-TRAK group here. They're also modular, but it's a different standard than Fremo, for example. And what makes T-TRAK different is the modules are really small. They're like a square foot. So anyway, we were at this E24 thing, and in the T-TRAK room, Sydney and I ran into one of our guests here, which I'll bring them both up here in a second, named Brett. And he actually, on the layout tour that's going to come out sometime within the next several months, talks about N-TRAK, what it is, and shows his modules. And he had, I remember the ones I saw were like 4 or maybe 5 modules all put together with industries on them. So they were really cool. And so at some point, Sydney was like, we should do a video about T-TRAK. So I invited her to be a guest on that video. So we're going to bring her in. This doesn't happen very often. The top secret producer.
Top secret's not top secret anymore, right?
Yeah, well, top secret hasn't been top secret for a while now.
Yes, we usually talk to Sydney by yelling down the hallway.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Make sure we're live. So she's in the other room because the camera out here, our space isn't big enough to have all 3 of us. And I mean, maybe she should have been on instead of me.
Or instead of me, either way. I don't know.
Our camera would be much easier to look at if it didn't have us on it.
Well, that's true. It's good having Sydney.
Yeah. Anyway, and then we also have Brett. So I'm going to bring Brett in, and then you two can really kind of take it away because I don't have a whole lot to say. I would welcome, Brett, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me. I don't know if I've got a whole lot to say, but maybe I should figure that out real fast.
So,
yeah. Well,
yes,
you're the one
we're
with the
here.
logo in the background, so you have to say something.
Today, I'm going to play the role of the newbie because I am the newbie. I'm interested in T-TRAK for a lot of reasons, but I wanted Brett to come on as well as somebody who's more experienced in T-TRAK and so could answer some of our questions. And Brett was great at just giving me a whole bunch of photos for the slideshow. So hopefully we can answer all our questions today and give everybody a taste of what T-TRAK is.
So
I hope so as well.
I have a question too, which is how does the little presentation that you came up with factor in? I guess just tell me when you want it on.
Let's go. Let's start.
Do you want it now?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's bring that up then.
So this all started really was because so I was looking personally for a way to kind of step into the hobby in a kind of an easy, less involved way. I obviously didn't want it to be very expensive. I wanted to be able to try my hand at all the official scenery and layout building type skills as much as I could. I wanted to be able to run trains, but hey, I need it to fit in my house, right? I need to be able to store it on a shelf somewhere. I need to be able to not take up my garage workbench with a bunch of stuff because I got other projects going too. So that was half my reason. The other half is we volunteer, John and I, at the South Bay Historical Railroad Society at the Santa Clara Depot here in California. And we're open every Saturday and we get tons of families. So bringing their kids, right? So many, families that come every Saturday, their kids love trains so much. They come every Saturday and they're kind of asking like, what's next? My kids love trains. They love model trains, but what next? Right. And so I'm trying to find a solution for them of what's something that's not intimidating to a parent who knows nothing about this model train business, but has to somehow guide their kid through this that kid thinks they might be interested in. So with something that's relatively inexpensive, the kids can try their hand at scenery, parent, child, families can do this together. And my hope is that we'll have some modules for some hands-on controllers in the kids' hands type running at our open days down at the depot. So that was kind of what got me into all this. And so then I got really excited when I found T-TRAK. And then I just wanted to know from Brett, Brett, what was your interest? How did you get into T-TRAK? Why was it a good fit for you?
A lot of it is some of the things you've already said. I've been a model railroader for pretty much most of my life. I'm 50 years old, so I'm a very big kid myself. I got started originally in N-TRAK, starting in Arizona, and then in Texas, I belonged to the Austin Track Club. I moved to Minnesota. I'm a member of the GRVS club up here. Around 2002, maybe 2003, the club decided to check out what T-TRAK was. It was just kind of new, coming onto the scene. And we all started looking into the standards and like, oh, maybe this is something we could try as another modular standard that we can do at shows. And I think at the time, maybe 20 of us or so, we all met up at a gentleman's house and we built 120 modules, I believe is what it was. And we all decided like, all right, build what you want, do what you want. We're not looking for any kind of a themed layout here. And for me, the minute I took home my first 4 or 5 modules and I could easily just toss them in my car, and I didn't have to worry about, hey, I need to move this out of the way, that out of the way. 4 foot, 6 foot N-TRAK modules. Plus they were heavy. These are a lot lighter. They're a lot smaller. And that for me became the main reason to switch to T-TRAK, was just do more, smaller space, and not have to hurt the back.
And you guys were just using the diagrams that are online and then building from your own materials, right?
Yeah, at that time, there were not any manufacturers like there are nowadays. So we started out, just Ron, our club member, he is like a cabinet maker, so he had all the fancy tools, knew how to cut the wood perfectly. Right. So for being modules made from home, they're pretty nice. Right. They're not as nice as laser cut or CNC routed ones that you can get today, but we put them together and we stacked them up. We had this giant stack in the garage that day, and that was the way you did it, 20 plus years ago.
Nice.
It was a lot of fun to do that.
Well, let's tell people what T-TRAK is. So
Let's
this is a
dive in.
diagram of one of the single modules, and they're what, about 12 by 13 inches.
Yeah,
And
everything's built around the Kato track standard. Everything
yeah,
comes from overseas with Japan when this was first developed, and then brought to the States by Lee Fitzgerald. But as you see in the drawing here, you have basically a 12. It's about 12 inches. It's about a 1 foot wide. We call it a single. It's a single module. The depth from front to back can vary, but anywhere from 12 and an eighth, as you have listed here. You can go up to 14 and 3/8, and that's about as far as most people will take it. Every now and again, you'll have somebody who will extend off the front to give them some more scenic room.
because you
But
kind of have
it's
to think, if you're going to meet up with other people, you need to be able to fit it on one of those conference or pop-up tables, right? So you don't
yeah,
need it to, you don't want it to be too deep, because then you can't fit
right.
another module on the other side, is the idea, I think.
Yeah, tabletop is kind of where the T comes from. It's for tables.
Yeah.
You think about if you were in Japan and you don't have places that have a whole lot of space, they were building to basically an A11 sheet of paper. It's kind of how they would build their original modules. And
Right.
just like we do here now, you get everybody together, you make a layout, but it all starts with something simple. And your single module is the first place you really want to start when you're just getting started. It's
Great.
you can do a lot on a little tiny space.
And so now these are the kits that you can get that include, whether they're, I guess there's laser cut ones and CNC cut ones, and they differ a little.
This particular one on the screen here is a CNC cut module that I had in the garage. This one is by Dark Sky Modules, who does the CNC cutting. So you can see it's very nicely done, easy to put together. You get some extra supplies, the corner feet. You know, you glue it all together.
Yeah,
a little bit of a mallet. You know, pound it together a little bit, but everything glues together with wood glue. You don't need no screws, no nails, no fancy clamps. He provides. If you look in the picture in the corner there where the corner feet are, there's some little sandpaper if you want to clean up any edges. The plastic or nylon, I believe they're nylon feet that you would screw into the screw holes. And then something else I added to that photo is a base that you can put onto the nylon screws that's 3D printed, or you can, find some other method, but you put that on the end, you have a little bit wider foot. So when you're reaching under your module to have to adjust our height, we have a very specific height that we try to keep everything level and running out when we're on the tabletops. And those feet make it really easy, even for large fingered gentlemen or individuals, to be able to adjust your level very quickly and easily.
And some of our kit manufacturers will mark where the track layout goes specifically, like Dark Sky here. It looks like they've pre-drilled screw holes for the track.
I believe of the 7 module builders that I know of these days, I believe they all in some fashion will either drill the holes, mark the lines.
Right.
A couple of manufacturers that are doing the laser cut, they're able to laser cut into the name of the actual track piece that goes on that section of the module that you're trying to put down, which is very handy if you don't know those off the top of your head, or you build your module before you've bought your tracks. You're like, oh no, what track do I need? They come with instructions, detailed instructions listed in there, but it's also right on your modules. Makes it very handy. And this, I believe in this photo, if you get really close with your bifocals, you can actually see some holes in there and some lines. So
yeah, I see some holes. Yeah. And do most of the kits also include the track in them?
No.
This day and age.
I can say, I won't say 100%, because there are people who will put track as a configuration. If you buy the module from them, it's probably an add-on option. But typically, no, the track does not come with the module. We're looking at just the modules themselves.
But they make it pretty easy by telling you which Kato Unitrack.
Yeah, very easy. I wish, that is one thing I'm not prepared for. I could show you a sheet, but I don't have one here in front of me. But this one from Dark Sky, if you were to go to his website, or if you've purchased from him, or Sean from Klondike, or Stuart Denniston, any of the guys, they all have a printed out sheet. It shows a picture, what goes where. It lists the Kato track numbers and their part numbers. So you can easily go to any retailer, hobby shop, local, and buy what you need to buy.
So they make it pretty easy, is kind of what I was trying to show here, and what I've been researching is, I mean, it's like, it's the easiest kit building.
Yeah, I usually, what I do if I'm at a show and I'm talking to a parent and has a young child in front of me, typically there's always somebody who has a module nearby that's not part of the layout. So I like to show that to them and say, here, hold this. You can see how lightweight they are, so you're not worrying about anything heavy.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I will walk them right over to a vendor at that show and say, here is the track, and this is what you're looking to buy. If you want to, if you want to buy it here now, that's great. If not, write these numbers down. And then I give them a business card from InRail or T-TRAK or my club, and have them go online as they can read the standards and check out all the extra information they need to have that I don't want to overwhelm them with when I'm standing there in front of them in person.
Sure, sure. I mean, it's like you just get a module built, put some track on it, and then you can dive even deeper in, right? Once you just got to start somewhere. And I mean, people can scrape off the stuff that they've done on something going, ooh, that was my first attempt. That wasn't very good. Scrape it all off and do it again.
The one nice thing I like about the modules now, and I just recently did this myself. I retired 4 doubles because I want to start over with some new stuff, and I didn't want to build new modules because I'm actually running out of space myself. So I needed something to work from. I had some that were 20 years old. I started popping the track off because I had used latex caulking on mine versus the screws to screw them in, and pop the track right off, sand it all down. You're back to a base frame again. You're ready to get going again. Start something new.
Everybody, we just got our first tip. Use latex caulking to put the track down instead of screwing it down. Awesome. Thank you.
I would do both. I would do both starting over now, just because the latex caulk is great. It'll hold everything in place, but you always tend to bump the ends of your module somehow. Yeah. So if you have some screws on the end points, they won't pop up as bad.
Depends on how much you're moving it. But here's some more information on that Kato Uni-Trak. So those are two of the pieces of the Uni-Trak right there.
Does this work? Can you? It's probably
hard to see. It's easy to see in the photo, I think, on the slide.
Yeah, zoom in on that. There you go.
There we go.
So in this photo, I just have standard Kato track hooked up to a couple of small joiners there with some wires coming off the end, and those wires are uni-joiners that you can buy from Kato, which would be the top right photo on the slide here. They come pre-wired with the proper Kato connection to be able to plug into whatever type of power pack that is usually used at an event. Going down the photos on the right, I will explain this a little bit. So you have the standard uni-joiner with a Kato connection. The next one is a 3-to-1. So a lot of times you'll have, like myself, I'll have 5, 6, 7 modules. I will take all of my individual modules and I will plug them into a 3-way. And then I only have to worry about one cable going out to our bus, because we have two buses that run down the layout to carry the power for all these modules that we're hooking up together. And the bus is typically provided, I will air quote that, provided by your DCC or your layout master for those events. A lot nowadays, you may have heard of something called a power pole. That's the bottom photo. So you see a standard Kato connection on the right, which is then wired into what you call a power pole. The power poles handle a higher amperage, and they're very easy to use. And most people build buses for T-TRAK layouts now, or even off their module directly with power poles. So we'll probably get to the standard at some point here, just to kind of talk about it.
But it seems like you don't have to be overwhelmed by the electronics. There's a very simple kind of plug and play thing.
Yes.
But it can you can also,
one golden rule.
Like, I'm thinking of a parent with children or something interested in this, you can kind of then start increasing their electrical knowledge with all this power pole and all this other stuff, right? But you don't feel overwhelmed by that, because the initial setup is pretty simple, especially with no soldering. I mean, come on now.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah, sure.
That might clarify for someone who's watching who has no experience with any of this. And that is, you could also, if you're just doing this at home and you're not going to go, connect with a whole bunch of other people, you could just plug your DC stuff straight into the track and run stuff at home that way, right? So,
and you could take the picture of the DCC controller that I have there and just replace that with a DC controller. Because you can see I just have some wires coming out the back. Those wires, I just alligator clip on my table there, just to hook up to these other wires, just for testing. And you can do that with DC or DCC. The big thing that there's a golden rule with T-TRAK is that the only wiring thing you're really worried about with the track is the wiring coming off of the track itself. And it's kind of hard to see in the photo, and I probably don't even have it. I don't have it aligned properly, but the wiring goes from front to back or from back to the front, BWWB. We go blue, white, white, blue. That is the standard configuration for T-TRAK. So if you were to look at this picture and zoom in, you'd be like, oh, Brett, you did it wrong. Well, thank goodness I'm not running any trains with anybody else, because it is wrong by the standard.
So Brett, you're saying from the top of those 4 wires connected to the track there on the left, it should be a blue wire, white, a white, and then a blue.
And then it should be white, blue. Yeah, I didn't set it up in the picture right, so I apologize to all the viewers for that. But the standard for T-TRAK is to go blue, white, white, blue. Yeah.
Hey, Brett.
And that way, yes.
So do you always have 2 tracks in front?
No. You could have, 2 tracks is the standard. That's the standard to have 2 tracks. But if you have a rail yard or a passing siding of some sorts, there can be multiple tracks.
Can you ever have single track?
I will say yes, with my finger as a caveat, that you would need to coordinate with the layout coordinator for the event that you would be at, because that's going to require a lot of extra attention from everybody playing on the railroad to make sure nobody runs into somebody else.
Yeah,
I've done it once on a layout, and it was fun, but it was harrowing all weekend.
It would be an interlocking for somebody, because single direction at a time, right?
Yeah.
Instead of double track. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but it's very scary, because you get a lot of people who don't pay attention, because people who don't know me, I'm a very social person. I tend to walk away from my trains and I start talking to people.
This is what I was excited.
I would be the guy going through that single track, running into everybody else's trains, waiting on the other end. They'd be yelling at me. That's what would happen.
Yeah, this is what I was excited about. Oh, Murph, did you have a question?
One more. I'm sorry, Sid.
That's okay.
So are the power poles any part of a T-TRAK standard?
They are, I believe right now, if I can look, I believe that we have them set up as an RP, a recommended practice, is something you can do with them. It really will come down to, I believe, area and area clubs. Myself, I tend to stick to the Kato because it's simple and easy, but I always carry my own conversion cables to go from Kato to power pole, because if I go to a show in Des Moines, which I go to often, I want to make sure that I can hook up to the power bus. So I want to make sure that I myself, and don't have to rely on anybody else, can hook up to those power buses. So I carry what I need to carry. Now, any new module that I'm building now, a lot of them will come with a little square cut out on them to have a plug that has all 4 power pole assembly. You can just pop it right in. You're ready to go right out of your module that way.
Right.
And that's becoming a new thing.
The other thing is that power poles can be assembled in multiple different ways. For Fremo, there was an actual standard for there's one red, there's one black, and they shall be always oriented this way.
Same with T-TRAK. There's a standard for if you're going to use power poles, how they get wired, which way the tab goes inside the plug, this way, that way. It's all laid out. There's pictures, so you can't screw it up. Well, I shouldn't say you can't screw it up, because I've screwed it up a few times.
It makes it harder to screw up.
Yeah. It makes it harder to screw up.
Hold my beer.
Yeah, I know I could.
I know you guys didn't get to see this when you were at E24, but Jack Morash was there, and there was 13 of us with the T-TRAK group, and we sat down and he gave us an impromptu 1-hour session on how to build bus cables the Jack Morash way, which in my opinion are some of the nicest I've seen of any show I've gone to across the country. And he does it very professionally. Everything is exact. It always looks the same. And, he nails that into your brain. You do it this way. You always do it this way. It becomes secondary nature. He goes, you always want to build, say, a 30-foot section, have your pigtails going off. It's wonderful that there's people out there that have done that for the community. So if you're not somebody who likes to do wiring, you can go, hey, sir, can you help me? And they'll jump on a call like this, and they'll walk you through how to build stuff and make it easier for your local club members.
Yeah, Brett, have you seen this that Nick here is telling us that he's
I've just seen it now.
Yeah, from Kato to the Atlas Code 55.
Yeah, I am a strong proponent of not using Atlas Code 55, and the reason is a lot of people are still running equipment that has what we call pizza cutters, so the bigger flanges on wheels. Atlas Code 55 is known for having molded nail heads that are a little bit thicker. So people who run the old pizza cutter style stuff, it rubs on there and it causes some problems. But if you wanted to go, Pico or micro engineering, that is a possibility. There's no standard that says you can or cannot use those in T-TRAK. The main thing with T-TRAK is that this end and this end, you have to exit right now with Kato Uni-TRAK. So what you do in between there is completely up to you. If somebody wants to do a very tight, shunt switching system, and you need to use some other kind of, hand laid switch that's not even as small as a number 4 or smaller, and you want to do that, you're welcome to. But as long as it needs to be robust, it needs to be rock steady. Because if you show up to a show and people are derailing, going over your stuff because it's not standard, then that's a problem. So in that case, if you're going to build that way, personally, I would like to do the Code 55. I like it better than the Kato Code 70. It just looks better to me. I'd rather do my own ballasting that way. But you still need to let your layout coordinator needs to know that you're bringing something that's it's standard, but yet not quite standard. Like it's a little bit different. So
give that layout coordinator a challenge, right, Brett?
Layout coordinating can be a challenge. I mean, I had my first giant show at E24 when you guys were there, and it was the biggest show I've ever run. And I had some challenges there. I didn't have to worry about that particular challenge because it's starting to just now come into discussions of people swapping out the tracks and more mainstream. I don't know if anybody on the stream here was actually an Inscaler that was at Altoona this last weekend, but a gentleman, Ed, was out there, and he brought out a little display thing that he created for a T-TRAK module to take a 3D printed end that hooks up the Kato Uni-TRAK on each end, and then in between you run whatever Code 55, Code 80, Code 70, Code 40. He had foam under one of them, and he had cork. He had some cork under one, so you could do a lot of different things. If you're I don't know what term to use. I don't want to offend anybody, but if you're a rivet counter and you need to have a Code 55 track that looks spectacular, you can do that in T-TRAK. There's nobody says you can't. Just on your ends, you got to come out with a standard connection to hook up to everybody else.
Well,
now,
let's show these.
Don't matter.
Let's show these people what I think is a huge selling point. Look at how you can store and transport these things.
Yeah, I wonder whose setup that is. That's pretty cool.
I have a question, and the picture on the far right might actually answer the question. But having used the Kato Uni-TRAK myself, because I do the product spotlights, or I call them N Scale Friday now, and I use Kato N-TRAK just to do my testing. And I know that the connectors stick out kind of on each side. Is that what that is on the far right side? Is that how
that is what you see there? Yeah.
So the modules are built together.
This is a double
physical connection of the track.
Yeah, this is a double module. So that the standard requires you to be 1 to 2 millimeters over on each edge. That way, there's room to connect everything together. If you were to bring the modules out to the true edge of your track, over 60 pieces of modules hooking up together, you're going to start to have a different going around a loop. You might have a gap on one end if people don't do it right, or you might be too tight and overlapping. So you really got to kind of 2 millimeters on each side. And the standard spells that out and shows that in the pictures as well.
So we're relying
it's hard to see here, but this is one of the old handmade ones. So that this one might be close to 1 millimeter even right at the edge of the wood, just because it's probably not square. But the standard calls for you to be around 2 millimeters overhang.
So
and that's based on the Kato track itself, is the specific length that it is. And so you have to adapt to that. And that's where the modules then become a little bit smaller, so you can hook it all up.
Yeah. So we're relying on the physical connection of the Uni-TRAK, the Uni-TRAK to connect the stuff physically, but the bus is what powers everything. So you're not relying on the rail joiners for your conductivity.
Yeah, just like your home layout, right? So old school days, well, even still today, you have a standard metal rail joiner that you put between the track. Kato has their plastic ones that have the rail joiner built in it, so for the snap connection. But instead of running a bunch of bus wires down underneath, well, you still can run them underneath, but hooked up in into a bunch of screw terminals, whatever. You do that on your own module, then you take that out to the bus, and the bus then is your whole 60-foot length. If you got 6 legs coming off of a spine in a show, every leg has a bus. Red, yellow are the 2 color standards that we use to designate whether it's the front rail or the back rail.
Right. I got it. I just wanted to make sure, because that might not be apparent to the people watching, that you are using your electrical connectivity through that separate bus and not through just the connection of the tracks.
The track actually does work really well. We tend to try to drop a connection to the bus every 6 feet is a good way to go. So you don't have to hook up every single module to the bus because the connectivity through the unit joiners is as solid as using a standard rail joiner on your Atlas Code 55. You don't have to solder it. Yeah.
My point is that it makes sense because also if you're modular, you don't know how many modules you're going to end up having, and relying just on the connectivity of the physical connection of the rail joiners would be a bad thing anyway. Okay, I got it.
All right. I want to get to some pictures of actual modules, but here we go. So this is to kind of I'm going to show some pictures of some really cool things that Brett's showing in photographs of all the different things you can do. So it's not just this single wide one that's in the middle here with your skyboard at the back. You've got corner pieces, inside and outside corners. There's double, so it's double wide. You've got triple wide, different depths, like Brett said earlier. And like, look at this.
I don't you just freak out when you look at that? I mean, that excites the heck out of me. There's so much going on right here that the standard viewer is probably not going to recognize. But
I mean, it looks exciting because it seems like, hey, once I get the basics, I could do some cool stuff, right? Like,
I mean,
you're not limited to like little cookies of layout that you put together. So
I mean, it's just
look at this, right? You've got that loop here. This is an end loop, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
This is exciting.
This
makes me giggle. These make me giggle because I just can't believe people think of this and then they do it and it works. The bottom one on the left is just straight, T-TRAK basically the whole way through. The one on the top right is going, I believe, originally that was either a one-track setup down to T-TRAK standard. Last year at the national show in Dallas, was it Dallas they were at for NMRA? I believe so. Dallas. Yeah. They did a combined layout and they went from N-TRAK down to T-TRAK. I think even with Fremo doing helices, and it makes me smile really big and it makes me giggle because to me it's fun. It's something different and it's just wild. It's just wild.
Yeah, it kind of ups the level of what you can do. So you can start out super basic, which is great for beginners, young people, parents trying to do this with their kids that don't know anything about modeling. So it's perfect. And then look at all this fun, complicated stuff you could get into.
Yeah, you could do some very complicated stuff.
And in here's the animation. I can't tell you how many of the ones at the Evanston show were animated in some way, which was super fun.
Yeah, I think this one's super fun because you look at the left picture and you're just like, okay, there's a lot going on. There's a double crossover. You see the bottom of it where the little switch machine is. That is the switch machine being used to control that double crossover. Like, a little mini amusement park. And then the owner of this module flips it over to show you all that's going on, and you're like, oh, okay. It's
that's
not
a lot going on.
But there still is a lot going on. I mean, this is a basic version of animation being put onto a module on a single, nonetheless. So this is a small module. And it just, I don't know. To me, it's super cool that people put in this kind of effort.
Yeah. And then, pretty cool doing the bridges because, maybe you just like doing a bridge and not a whole scenery.
I think the bridges are cool because nowadays with the guys who are building these for these clubs, you can see the names of the clubs on here.
Yeah.
They're laser cut T-TRAK modules that are just a little bridge, right? But what's nice about them is that if you're at a show and some guy has this thrown in his bag somewhere, I'm like, oh man, we're short a single module today. Oh, I've got my bridge module. I mean, it doesn't take much just to throw it in, fill in the gap, or just something different. And you wouldn't believe how many people will come up to you at a show. I'm like, how are those built? And like, oh, it's all laser cut. It's it's really
well,
neat.
And to me, it makes it kind of a nice entrance to a show or for a club to kind of like walk in and there's your name and all that kind of stuff.
And it still classifies as a module. I mean, it meets the standard on both ends. It's if this had to be powered, which if these are probably not because the connectivity will carry through, but they still have feet on the bottom to adjust. I mean, it still classifies as a module.
Yeah, that's great.
You could have a carload of bridges and just do a whole layout in bridges. Wouldn't that be wild? That'd be kind of wild.
I think I missed one here. So yeah, wow.
Yeah, this one has a lot going on. I did a bad job of not getting everybody's names so I could give them credit for all their wild stuff that I was sharing photos with.
So you
But this
had
is
said you went on to some of the Facebook groups too and took some photos there. So like we're going to give some resources at the end, some links, and know that the Facebook groups, people are very nicely sharing their projects and cool photos like this. So they're a great place to even start your journey by just hanging out in those rooms for a while.
Yes. Come
Those
hang out with all of us in all of our groups. We love having people around to chat to. This
And
one
then
I found really
then
interesting
you have a whole
because it's
support
like,
system.
yeah. This one was interesting to me because it is T-TRAK model. You look at it like, where's the T-TRAK part of it? Well, this is kind of an S curve, I guess, with a couple of modules, but they lowered the module base. You see it sitting basically flat on the table versus sitting on legs.
Exactly.
So that way they could do the tunneling in this other individual line system. So the raised elevation of the module is actual standard T-TRAK height. So it's something a little bit different you don't see every day.
Nice.
It caught my eye. I think it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, you can fit a little extra on there.
And this one
I thought was really nice because it had a nice skyboard and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the scene skyboards are not a part of the standard, but if you want to do a skyboard, they tell you how you can do the skyboards. But yeah, excuse me, the skyboard on this, but just the weathering of the mill itself, just it blows my mind. I mean, the weeds along the fence line,
doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe this. I don't remember where this one was from, but obviously, I think it was in a contest. You can see like a contest form down below there.
Yeah, you can.
I hope whoever this was won, and I apologize for not knowing who this is off the top of my head, but it is one of my favorites. Every time I've seen this at an event, I will stand and look at it for hours and find details I didn't think I had seen the time before. It's just cool. It's just cool.
And then the lighting. I mean, look at this. This is awesome. A church.
Yeah.
So some great modeling is happening on these T-TRAK, which I was excited about when I walked into the room. I was like, good modelers are modeling on T-TRAK, right?
Yes, they are.
It's not just simple. I mean, there's room for everybody in all skill levels.
Right.
But
you don't have to be an NMRA master modeler.
It's exciting to be in a crowd of people where experienced modelers are still working on it. Dave Hammer's asking,
I'll get his question here in a second. I'll get to that in just a second. I just want to talk about this one a little bit more. I got to give a shout out because I do know it was this one. I believe this is Andy Zimmerman's, and he has multiple modules that go together in this set that he has, and they're all this way. They're all lighted, and it's very difficult to see this at a show with the lights on because you miss so much. So I'm glad that he likes to put photos up, because on the top of that building there, you'll see it's got like an animated billboard.
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic what you can do with these modules. Something very simple to something crazy and wild, and we'll see here in a couple more slides there's something even more fun you can do. Dave's signaling will vary depending on user and setup that they want to do. There's so many different ways to do signaling. You can do a very simple, I believe on this one, I can't tell on this one if this is Andy's that has the Kato crossing on it, which will have its own built-in signaling for the crossing itself to ding, ding, ding. And well, it probably doesn't ding, but the lights will turn on with the crossing gate. But there are companies out there that have modules that you can plug in that do some different lighting for you, or signaling for you. You can do a very simple setup where if you're power routing off of a switch and just have it turn on a signal that way versus any kind of block detection. Arduinos, MSS, I will just kind of throw out the name MSS, modular signaling system. If anybody's seen a Fremo layout in the last 6 months at either E24 or Altoona or maybe any place else on the East Coast, MSS is now taking off, and it's going to become a really huge thing here in the next few years. It is a modular signaling system that you can add to just about any kind of modular layout. And hopefully this next summer in Kansas City, or is it St. Louis? 2025 is in St. Louis, Kansas City. One of the two. I'm hoping with some guys to be bringing MSS into the T-TRAK world and displaying it there. So that's some exciting under the radar news.
Nice. So Nick is asking about buried track, and that was kind of what we saw back here. Let me go back.
I don't think I have one.
Nick's meaning where it's kind of buried, it goes underneath like that, but that's not.
Yeah, there people do that. You can use you can bury your own track using various techniques, or you can get the Oncado does the I want Street Scenes is the name that's coming to my head, but I know that's not correct. But they have track embedded into, basically plastic with the lines drawn on it, and it's basically a downtown city scene. And you can build little mini dioramas with the track already embedded, and that stuff fits onto T-TRAKs. Thanks, Brian. That's your neck of the woods.
Nice.
Should have known that.
So here's a couple that have some nice water scenes on them, which I thought was cool to show, some rock work and water. And
I consider this an artistic module because the water on this is fantastic. The layers, the depths. But the other neat thing about this is you can build a module, in this case, a set of 2 that span across the loop in this case. So these modules are probably 14 inches deep, 14 3/8. So you build a pair of modules that go back to back. So this wouldn't work in every layout scenario, but in this particular layout, they have a very narrow layout leg. So these modules will fit back to back and create a scene without having to go side by side. I think that's kind of
a deep scene as opposed to like double wide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other way to do this is you would get you could have the your module builder or yourself. You could have them specially make you a set of modules that is basically the size of an end cap module, but a little bit wider. And you could do it that way as well, as long as the layout coordinator and the layout is built to accommodate that. This works perfect. No issues.
We've got Rusty Possum Bayou in the chat, and he's talking about modules. He's had some videos that he's posted of him building and prepping some modules. That was like some of the first that I watched on YouTube about these. So check out his channel, guys.
And Rusty's a cool guy too, so that helps.
That helps. Yeah, and then we've got, so Brett explained this to me.
So this is a very interesting concept. This is something I even myself had looked into about 10 years ago before I decided I just would keep building modules. But you could build one module, and let's say, for example, on this one, you build up your track, you get a little bit of foreground done, then you keep the rest of your track or the rest of your module clear. And then you just build scenes, and you change the scene on your module depending on your mood. So one day you're feeling like doing a grain elevator, you slap on a grain elevator scene. One day you're feeling like this gentleman has looks like maybe a little farm scene. You slap on a little farm scene. As long as you have a way for anything that's on that part of the module, that in this case, he must have a light or something like that. So he has a plug going through there. Yeah. But people will put little mini magnets underneath the little scenes or Velcro. But you could show up to a show and like, everybody here is running grain elevators. I don't want to show my grain elevator. I feel like showing my fishing pond. You throw a fishing pond scene on instead.
I mean, talk about getting the most out of a single module, really. I do know of a guy, and John will remember his name because I'm blanking on it right now, but he has more of a standard module with panel sections that pull out and you can pop new ones in. So he has a HO regular in California scene, and he can also pull those off and then put his Japanese scenery on.
That's Paul Ingram.
Yeah, Paul Ingram. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is really cool.
My idea on this was to have a single or a double that, that I don't have to carry a whole bunch of modules, but then I can just make a case. And I can, like you said, like I slide out a scene, I slide in a scene, I slide out a scene. In the middle of the show, you get a little kid that comes up and is like, I wish there was da-da-da-da-da. And like, I just happen to have that. And you pull out the scene,
magic.
And there you go,
Say, Nick, I just want to let you know, we're going to have a list of resources at the end on the screen. So we got plenty of vendors out there, and our goal was to try to expose people to as many of the vendors out there as possible. So we'll have those at the end.
I have to agree with Caboose 121. You can always use more grain elevators. That's what my favorite thing to model. So I have to. You
know who that is, right, Brett? Cameron
I don't.
From Evanston.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So if he gives you any grief, that's who he is.
All right.
So look at this module. I mean, we got like smoke or steam or something's on fire.
Take a real close look. Take a real close look at the base here. Look at those mobile homes. What do you see happening there?
Oh, tornado.
This is a tornado, and this is an animated tornado.
Oh my gosh.
So this thing spins around and around, goes back and forth, and the cloud has LED lights in it and lights up, and there's some sound associated with thunder and lightning.
Wow.
This is a crowd pleaser. There's 3 or 4 people I think across the country have done variations of this type of a module, and it's an attention grabber. It's fantastic. They're so neat. It's
Bernard
so
at
creative.
Mini Prince is yelling cow. I wonder if he means it needs to have a cow flying through the
It
tornado.
needs to have a cow flying around. I don't believe this one does. There was one I saw when I was
Should,
where was I at? Canada. I think I was in Canada, and I had gone to a show when I was in Canada, and a guy had a similar type of storm like this, but and he had on the part that spins on his center area, he had cows off of a piece of metal, and they would go around with it. And I was cracking up. It was wild.
Nice.
Yeah. And there you go. Mini Prince to the rescue, because they do make some of the best animals in the biz.
And then look, guys, there's room for the Lego people.
Right.
I mean, talk about
you don't have to
making
be a rivet
something
counter.
Yeah, talk about making something accessible to kids. I was super excited when I saw this, because I could see that's something kids are already familiar with building, right?
Yeah, I like to categorize this under the whimsical.
Well,
this
sure.
space aliens, just anything
What
that's
to be honest,
wild,
whatever gets
something different.
people into the hobby,
Mhm.
and then whatever makes you happy doing it.
I mean, I hate to say this, but the percentage is not going to be accurate. So, knock on wood that this is a bad number, but let's just say 90% of the model railroaders these days are aging out of the hobby. We're all aging out of the hobby, and the younger crew are not coming into the hobby like they were 20 years ago. And if you had a T-TRAK layout like this with a kid who loves Legos, I'm a big kid, I love Legos myself, I would talk to a kid for hours about model railroading and Legos. And if that gets their interest to want to move forward and stay in the hobby, so be it. It doesn't have to be like a master model railroad module. So many people get stuck on, it doesn't look good, the Kato track isn't that pretty. Who cares? It's about having fun and building what you want to build and expressing your part of the hobby.
Telling a story through your scene, that's always
there's some
engaging.
obvious stories going on here. It's amazing.
There's so many ways to enjoy it, and that's why I like the modules, because it gives people a chance to discover what parts of the hobby really excite them. So a kid doing this, or a newbie person like me doing it, could do this and go, man, I found doing all the electrical stuff, even the little that there is to do, and the thought of adding lights and all that kind of stuff, maybe that really excites me, and that's something that's going to be my big interest in the hobby. I wouldn't know unless I'd had a chance to do it. Or maybe, like I could see my daughter would be pretty interested in painting like skyboards and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot of ways to pull people in, and they could kind of meet in the middle at this building a module, but they all have kind of very specific interests.
Well, I have a challenge out there to the community of the folks who do like to put Lego on their T-TRAK modules. I've yet to see a Lego set of modules that are animated. I want to see some Lego animation. I think that would be cool. But there's so many things you can do with the robotic stuff built into the Legos. There's amazing things out there.
I'm trying to convince Murphy needs to make a Warhammer module or two.
Oh yeah,
Warhammer is.
I'm going to beg Murph after the show is done to do that. Yeah,
I think it was it last year at either Train Fest or Mad City. There's a gentleman who lives in the Chicago area, and he was in our layout, and he had I called it Dungeons and Dragons. It wasn't specifically meant to be Dungeons and Dragons, but it was a module that came up with an overhang on it. Everything inside it was black. He had some weird creatures and all this strange stuff, but it also had black lights in it. So
awesome.
When it was on, everything was glowing and it screamed Dungeons and Dragons to me. And the kids would just stand there for hours and pointing at this and pointing at that. I'm like, they could care less about what else was going on. They just wanted to look at that. And I'm like, what a great way to express this person's love for something they're interested in, and it's out of the norm, it's different, and it drew a crowd. And you need a crowd
combine their two passions in their life, right? Be able to combine that.
Yeah.
So
you see all kinds of crazy stuff. There's a gentleman who goes to quite a lot of shows, mostly on the East Coast. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but he has at least 6 feet, maybe 8 feet, and it's all different scenes from the Star Wars movies. And there's animatronics built into that too. So he has like the Death Star trench run as one module, and you see Darth Vader chasing down Luke's X-Wing in a T-TRAK module. and then another module is like Dagobah, and you see Yoda sitting in his hut with the lights flickering on a module.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's
Well, which kind of
artistic, fun,
segues,
whimsical.
yeah, which kind of segues, Brett, into, you know, the whimsical bringing in well-known and well-loved franchises into a module is especially pleasing when a lot of the people that do all the modules, I mean, the goal is to go to shows and conventions and things, connect together, run trains, you know, and be together
Yeah,
and hang out. And so what is more, you know, pretty crowd pleasing when you've got things people recognize on the modules that make it
it definitely
interesting
helps.
to a wider range of people who go, oh, sure, I'll go with you to that train show. And then they go, whoa, that's cool. So
We got a question over here. Darby Rail Services. It's not a stupid question. Number one, it says, "Does InScale runs on T-TRAK?" T-TRAK is a modular standard for InScale railroading. Yes, so it is a yes to your question in a different way. So InScale is not InScale is like the size where the gauge of the rail would be in gauge. So T-TRAK would work with any InScale in gauge equipment worldwide if you build to the standard.
and
And
there
use
are also
auto
people that
Unitrack.
do HO and Z scale on T-TRAK, right?
There are
Yeah.
a few years ago, well, probably more than a few years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, a gentleman that was big into the T-TRAK community, he decided to branch out into Z, and he started T-TRAK Z, and they do events at shows too. And same concept, it's T-TRAK modules, but scaled for Z scale equipment. I believe their modules are almost the same size for the most part. Just you're
Yeah.
using Z-TRAK,
Right.
scaled rail, and same with HO. People don't think that you would do a modular layout like this with HO, but there's no reason not to. You can have
Sure.
you don't have to go to something that's up on 50-inch legs. You can do it on a tabletop in HO as well. They have
Yeah.
a standard that they follow too.
Hey, so Brian Mills in our chat, he's got a T-TRAK Z layout that'll be in Springfield, Missouri this weekend. So if you're
Now,
around Springfield, people go check
I'm
it
gonna
out. I would love
I'm
to see that because, you know, you
I
could
think
just get a
Brian's would
lot
be
of
fun to see.
Z-scale scenery on a
Brian's
T-TRAK.
a really good modeler. I'm
Nice.
hoping, Brian, you'll have to put some pictures up where we can see him later on any of the groups. I'm hoping he'll have some of his own whimsical stuff on this
Nice.
lab, because he has some very fun whimsical stuff that he does in the T-TRAK stuff. That's always a fun crowd pleaser.
So some other things, obviously people can go to specific to any type of train convention, and they're usually these setups are part of the train show part of a convention. But there's also people could also use these and enter them in contests or shows at conventions as well.
If the convention is offering a contest, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You can also meet up with your local T-TRAK group, and we'll have a link at the end that has a way of you finding if there's somebody close by, or grab some friends that aren't making them yet either, and just learn together and make a bunch. Also, another option, which I don't think people always think about, but a lot of local non-rail events are more than happy to have a train setup occur at whatever event it is, whether it's your kid's school or a community fair or some kind of historical event. Maybe if you're really into prototype modeling and you're modeling your local area or historic thing, that would work. Obviously, the Christmas things come into play. It's a no-brainer. If there's Christmas events, somehow trains always appear. So, and then there's also the specific events, Brett, that you know quite a few of, like E24, which was in Evanston, where they're specifically meant to like connect up the most modules ever or something like that. So, right?
Yes, E24 was an undertaking. We had about, I don't know if I remember correctly, 60 by 40, 60 by 50 feet in our room that we were in.
And that was the first time T-TRAK had been invited to that, right?
Yeah. Lee was very gracious and expanded the show to invite N-TRAK and T-TRAK, and I jumped on board right away. I know most of those Fremo guys for years. I was like, I want to be part of this at Evanston, because just the facility is fantastic. So anybody here, go onto the T-TRAK Facebook pages and just type in like Evanston, and you'll see a bunch of pictures from the event there and photos. But in this one specifically, we do. Just one second, Murph.
Okay.
I just want to mention that this one on the left here is Mad City. That is, I would say that is a standard sized show layout. The configuration is maybe not be standard because this one, this last year we did like a C. That's roughly 60 by 50 feet or so. So I would consider that kind of a big show. Maybe 20 people overall were there that brought modules. The one on the right is actually at a high school. Here in Minnesota, they do Randolph Railroad Days, they call it. And we had three T-TRAK layouts there. This one on the right, I wanted to depict so somebody can see like a smaller layout. This is about maybe, I don't know, it's 2 tables wide. So what's that, 6 feet wide and maybe 4 or 5 tables long, not even, maybe just 4 tables long. So this is the Northern Iowa Club. They come up and do that, and they always have a nice little layout. So I like to show that off because it's very, very simple and easy to put together, and that's kind of a small event. And you were mentioning going out and doing stuff at like winter, like your local winter. I actually will take my T-TRAK stuff and I will go now and again and find local Boy Scouts to get together so they can get a railroad badge. And then get a railroad badge. And there might be another badge they can earn too, but we'll set up maybe at a church or a community center with the retirement community because when you're retired, no offense to anybody here that's retired, but you need something to do if you don't have anything to do. Why not come play with trains, right? Come play with trains.
Murph. That's a great segue to Murph, Mr. Retired.
Murph had a question.
Murph had a question.
Are the modules all one size?
No. So modules vary in depth and width. As long as there's a standard for width, which is your single, your double, triple, quad. You can go bigger if you want to carry something that big. There are measurements, but the depth the standard is 12 and 3/8, whatever it is per the standard, with variable up to like 14 and 3/8. But you can offset to the front a few inches, but your coordinator needs to know that because you might be hanging off the end of the table.
So the coordinator basically only really needs to know how many units worth of length you have in order to make an oval.
Yeah.
Or if you have something's different, like your offset, your track, or
so you do typically what you call is a call for modules. Like when I was coordinating 24, even a year early, I started throwing it out on the groups. Hey, I'm going to be here. I'm the coordinator. Who's coming? Get people to come, and then you start. I'm bringing 10 doubles. I'm bringing 10 singles. You start there. So you know what you're going to need, but then you have to get into the specifics. If somebody has a junction that's abnormal in shape or size, where do I need to place that? Do I need a companion module to match it, or inside corner has to go with an inside corner at some point in your layout? Things like that. Then you get into the specifics and you start to draw the layout plan on the modules.
I'm comparing to like Fremo, where I don't know unless you had a lot of pre-planning, you could never make an oval.
I would challenge that to Lee Calkins because I think he could do an oval.
No.
I think he's good enough at it that he could take a random group of guys and make an oval out of Fremo modules, but it's not typically something you see. If you have an oval or a circle in Fremo, it's because it's a balloon module and they built it that way.
Right.
Yeah. I have kind of a related question, which is, it seems like the T-TRAK standard, or whatever you want to call it, is really meant to be a running around in circles thing. Like someone's asking the questions, actually. I have it down here somewhere. I missed it now. Oh, here it is.
About operations.
Lee was asking if anybody does realistic op sessions. And
they do, actually. They do.
If you're in a big oval, it would be kind of hard to have very realistic op sessions. But
it's not as hard as you think, John. It's not as hard as you think. It comes down to the coordinator. The coordinator has to know ahead of time when you're building the layout that, all right, there's going to be people here who want to do operations. We had set up Evanston with the capability of doing operations by putting certain industries at certain points in the layout. So if we wanted to do operate, it wouldn't be anything complex, basically move car A to position B, move those sets of cars to position yard A, whatever the case may be. But if you wanted to get complex, you can. There is actually a small group of T-TRAKers who are really pushing, trying to make it more known of operations in T-TRAK, where they will specifically build their modules based on operations. Or you'll get a gentleman who will come to a show and he'll have, actually, I think one of Brian Mills's club members, comes to a show, and I don't know how long Brian can type out if he wants. It might be 12 feet long, and it is just module after module, but the whole module is just giant switching all over those sets of modules. So you could spend all day standing in front of this 12 feet, just switching within these modules yourself and just having yourself a heyday.
Yeah,
there's
Brian
lots of
said
options.
he's working on realistic ops with a member of his club, so that's cool.
So it's there's a lot out there. There was another question, so I think it might have been Nick. I got to scroll up here. I think he's asked about clubs. Nick, when you say South Bay, I assume you're speaking probably, is that California?
In our area. Nick lives near us. We'll research
so I don't know
that,
specifically,
Nick.
but they're on the T-TRAK wiki, which we can put up here in whenever Cindy wants. The T-TRAK wiki page has a lot of clubs listed on it, and also the NRail organization breaks everything by state and clubs that are members of the NRail community. So you get a good list of between those two websites of both types of clubs and organizations. And we have stuff that I know we're promoting from England and Spain, and there's a club in Jerusalem now. Obviously the Japanese clubs, but both websites have lots and lots of clubs listed and links to those clubs and who to contact if you want to get involved. And the events are listed on the NRail website. We have here Train Fest. That's one of the biggest shows in the nation. That's in November every year in Wisconsin. NMRA 2025 will be in Novi, Michigan, which is Detroit. There will be a big T-TRAK layout involved there. The N-Scale National Convention, the N-Scale NSE show, as it's referred to. I don't know where it is at this next year, which is terrible. I should know that. I do not, but there is a show. NMRA 2026 is something we're really trying to promote real big. We are going to, well, I shouldn't say we. Bruce Arbo is the head coordinator for the T-TRAK layout at that show, where we are working to break the world record for the largest T-TRAK layout.
That's in Chattanooga, right?
That is in Chattanooga. I believe
100,000
square feet is what I want to say, or 10,000, maybe it's 10,000 square. It's a very large number. And so far, there has been a commitment of over 400 modules from folks already. So that is something to look forward to. Obviously, we've talked a little bit about Evanston, which was this year. That runs every 3 years. I will just throw the rumor out there that could change to be every year based on a part of the country. There's a possibility that 2026 could have something going on in Oklahoma. Wild rumor right now, can't say for sure. But those guys will let everybody know that out on the internet when that happens, if it happens. I'm hoping it does. Break it up a little bit.
So there's a lot of resources here. I'm going to have John put all these links and stuff in the description of the video when we're done here today. So it's something you guys can copy and paste easily.
Oh, Brian, NSC is in Kansas City. That's right. That's what I was thinking of. That'll be a good one. That'll be a good one too.
So
there's a lot of resources.
The vendor list on the NRail, the nrail.org, the vendor list at the nrail.org/partners is good. And then, like we talked about, I got my modules from Precision Model Railroad and Dark Sky modules on Etsy, which I was
I'll
how cool! I can buy this on Etsy.
So the partners link are all the people who have become partners with the NRail organization. So we promote them, they promote us. I'm my 3D printing company is a partner there. But there's also the info links page that we have, and the info links page has a little bit of everything. So it's another good resource for magazine kit parts, DCC information, all that. There's a lot there.
Really cool website you can get lost for hours looking at all the stuff on there and getting educated.
We try really hard to get all the information in one spot for people to make it easy for them. We are kind of the stewards of the standard. Originally, NRail was the ntrak.org website, and then it has merged into all this, and then Lee Calkins gotten on board with us, and so we also have the Fremo group with their stuff there too. And it just, we keep growing and doing as much as we can, promote, get people involved. I don't think I'll probably get hand slapped for saying that. I don't think we'll ever be as big as the NMRA, but our goal is to have the communication level that the NMRA has, and be the resource for in-scale modelers to come to and know that they have a trusted place to come. Yeah.
To be a good option. Yeah. Good NRail to be a good resource spot. And then, between Fremo and N-TRAK and T-TRAK, like they're all good options. Heck, I started with the Mini Prince peanut butter lid challenge. That's what got me started.
Okay.
And I'm like, this was fun. I just did a little tiny peanut butter lid with no track on it. And it was like, next thing I need to do is something with track on it. And that's what I was like, well, what do I go to next? And so
there is an option out there under the NRail banner. It doesn't quite fit with our topic here today, but we do have the mini diorama that we work with Kato. And that is a very big up and coming new standard, and another good way to get children into model railroading, because it's something you can do with STEAM programs through school. And we got a lot of information there we can share, and Kato has some stuff teamed up with us. And I believe there might have been something at Altoona this last week. I'm not 100% sure, but I know there will be at the national shows. There'll be actual large sized mini diorama layouts.
That's awesome.
You can do some wild, crazy things with it too. And you're talking about something like this big. It's all it is, just one piece of track. But you can do a lot of fun things.
Makes people happy, and I like that there's so many choices.
If it grows the hobby and keeps people interested, I'm 100% for it. I mean, another off topic, hex track, something taking off in England right now. Slowly going to start.
I just saw that recently. Explain what that is.
I can't explain it too much because I'm just starting to learn about it myself. I'm hoping that in the near future we will have a Zoom track.
It's a panel, right? It's a hexagon.
It's a hexagon panel.
It has track on it, and then they just join together, kind of like beehive type.
Yeah, think of Warhammer Gaming, like a tabletop. They're just really big. When I first saw it, the first thing I was like, wow, somebody's going to get out their Warhammer stuff and start playing with their Warhammer, but yet they're going to have a futuristic train running through their board setup. That's the first thing I thought of. But it has a multi-level dimension to it too. There's an upper level you can do, and again, it's just some guy came up with something wild for himself, and he put it out there in the public, and the public jumped on board. And Gordy Robinson, the president of the NMRA, he lives in England, and he's an in-scaler, and he thought it was fantastic. And he just put up a couple pictures and videos recently on the Hex Track live website of him and his kids on their kitchen table doing Hex Track. Nice. And then people have taken that standard now and taken different shapes, so you don't just have a honeycomb edge, you have some square edge corner pieces you can slap. I mean, it's like anything. You get it to the public will adopt it, they'll make it better, and it just starts to grow and grow and grow. Just like T-TRAK has. It went from this single module thing to people transporting quads to shows now. It's just bonkers.
And bridges and helixes and all the crazy stuff. But Brett, I know that you have to go, Brett, but
I'm okay. We're all right.
Sure people had a chance to ask any questions if they had something, because you know more than I do. So
I don't know if I know more than anybody else. I just like to talk a lot. That's all I know.
You want to hang out for a minute and see if there are any specific questions that people can?
Yeah, I'm fine. Split Rock asks, is there a T-TRAK helix? There's not a specific T-TRAK helix as in a standardized helix, but people have made helixes for T-TRAK. And Sydney can probably scroll back the slides 3 or 4 pages, and you can see a couple pictures of some that we shared earlier.
Yeah.
That would require me putting it back up.
Oh, there you go. John's running the show. There we go.
Oh, a little slow to the punch there.
Almost. A few more.
Yeah, I don't want to
click
give him a headache.
For a minute.
There we go. There's some helices. Yeah. A very elaborate one on the left and a very hodgepodge, make it work one on the right. But they work.
It's like an N-TRAK to a T-TRAK type layout.
Yeah,
I think it's really
crazy.
Cool.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be a little concerned about the radius because, I'm thinking of a modern 6-axle lash up of power trying to go on that tiny, tiny helix. What is it? It has to be more than one module, right? I mean, you can't make a helix that's only 12
the one on
inches.
the lower left, I believe, was 4 modules when when they made that one. I'm thinking that's probably built to T-TRAK standards because it has to fit on the table, right? So you basically have corner module. If you look real close, you can see it's corner module on the corner of the helix there. So that's probably standard, the old style, maybe 12-inch radius. modules. So yeah, your big giant 6-axle diesels are going to look kind of funny going there. They may or may not run too well, but you got to try. You got to try.
Oh,
There's
right. Or
something
so neat.
modern zooming
use
along the
4-axle.
top of the upper right photo.
Yeah, that is Juan's, Brian. It is Juan's. I don't even know if it's still together, if he still keeps it around anymore. I've only seen it once in person. But it's fun to see. I wish we could see it at every show, but it doesn't travel too often.
Cool.
It is an interesting structure.
I want to give a shout out to my family. They've probably cut out already because of what we're going to be doing. But my little sister was in one of those photos. And it was the first time she'd ever run a train. I had her on a T-TRAK, the T-TRAK layout, and she was running a sound engine DCC. So when you watch this back on YouTube and you see the girl with the long curly black hair and the smile from ear to ear, that's because she was playing with sound on a T-TRAK layout. So that made my day. She was very excited, and that just shows that you can bring anybody into the hobby. Granted, she'll probably never build a module, but she was there to play and hang out with her big brother, and we had a heyday. So
now I'm looking for.
Yeah, you'll see her.
It's
I think
the shows.
top right.
There we go.
Top right.
Shout out to my sister
she
Heather.
Looks pretty happy.
Yeah, she was having a heyday. So we had
see how happy you make people when you put a controller in their hands.
And we didn't talk about this either, but she's running Wi-Fi off of a phone app instead of having a standardized, typical DCC or DC hand controller. So I had her on her phone. We downloaded the app, got her up and running. She had a heyday. I don't know how long she ran, a couple hours. She was just having a heyday. Well, the thing that does make me sad is off that photo to the other side that you cannot see is one of my nephews running on Fremo. I shouldn't say that. Running on Fremo. He didn't want to run on T-TRAK. He wanted to run with the Fremo guys. Yeah, but
I like how you
said
that too. Running on Fremo.
Too, and he was so excited. He's like, Uncle Brett, I want to do some model railroad. I was like, well, here's how you're going to get started. He's like, okay. I mean, will he? I don't know, but yeah. But it was just fun to have, your own family there to support you. When you talk about it all the time, they see me do this stuff all the time, but to see it in person is a whole different thing. And then you give it to them and say, all right, your turn, have fun. And to see somebody have fun that I was expecting, like, would shrug it off and like, oh, I did my 10 minutes, I'll walk away. But no, she had a heyday. So never discount that little child in all of us. We all have a little inner child inside of us.
Honestly,
we took our daughter to an off
open
session
house
recently.
at the club.
Go ahead, Murph.
When we have open house at the club, we hand the kids a throttle when they walk in. There are kids that cry before they leave. They're just having so much of a good time. And
there's a gentleman in my club. He spends all day, every event, just running trains with little kids. That's what he does. And it just to see the smiles on their faces, and then also the parents are like, oh, thank you so much, because I did not know what I was going to do with my child all day today, because I didn't know. You come to these events, you don't typically get to play with the trains. I mean, I'm very specific about certain equipment of my own. I won't just let a child run around. I will put specific equipment on the layout for them to run, because if they do slam it into something, I'm like, okay, it doesn't matter. I won't put my expensive stuff out there. But the parents all want to, like, we didn't really talk about expense this, but there are levels to getting into model railroad. You can come in dirt cheap down here and have a heyday, or you can spend your life's fortune up here and have a heyday. There's no reason to do this until you've done this. One of the trains we
let them run is my Coast Starlight and HO scale, and it's probably a $1,200 train, but they're cool.
I have a box of cars that are worth $1. You go to a train show, people are always getting rid of their trashy stuff. Throw some better couplers on it, throw some better wheels on it. That $1 car just became a $20 car. But if it gets broken, I'm out a few couplers. Who cares? It's not like I'm giving them my $400 sound engine to run. Let them run a $30 old beat up thing. As long as they're running something and they're learning and they're expressing how much fun they're having. Because then when they go home, they're like, Mom and Dad, I want to do this. And we got to keep the hobby growing.
And it's all ages too, right? Like the photo of your sister shows, right? Adults are like that too. I was like that. Someone put a controller in my hand. Yes. Like that's when it gets fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also happens to be fun for me to watch people operate because I learn a lot, but you can't be operating. So those adults in the crowd, let them operate. Kids in the crowd, let them operate.
I want to shout out City to you.
Let them operate.
I want to shout out to you directly, because something that doesn't get talked about enough, and it's not necessarily off topic, but it's still part of our topic, is the women in model railroading is growing. And it's because of women like yourself and Cynthia and the ladies, Michelle at the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, and NMRA's new multimedia manager. And women in model railroading is huge because for
and a
me,
whole crowd of people.
at an event, I see more moms than I see dads. And if I can put them in front of a woman to talk to about model railroading versus listening to me, I think they have a better chance of them being excited about it and their children getting more of a chance to get into the hobby because I can relate to you. You were a mom, or like, oh, who's this old guy with this Nebraska hat on? Yeah,
It's not
he's just a
just
model
for
railroad guy.
old guys, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
oh, you mean I can do that too? Okay.
So big shout out to you and the women of model railroading. I think it's very important that we have you guys involved, and it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So we
You're
are
welcome.
a special interest group, and that means that people can officially join us. And that means men who want to support women in the hobby can join as well. We have a really active Facebook group, a member, Women in Model Railroading member group on Facebook. If you want to look for us there and join it, then we're out to support more women in the hobby so it feels comfortable and people are invited. And my experience mainly is that I see a lot of women in the hobby, and when I talk to them, I have to point out to them, do you realize you're a woman in the hobby? Like, you're building your husband's buildings on the layout. Guess what?
Mm-hmm.
You're a woman in the hobby.
Yep. It gets overlooked.
Exactly. So
there's another question over here from Nick.
A lot of times they're hiding, but they're out there. So
Nick needs an award for asking all the questions today.
I know.
He's doing
Nick
a wonderful job here
today.
And I see there's been some answers. There's some answers there, some good answers. And Nick, it does depend on the layout coordinator, the layout itself. I know at the Evanston 24, we had on our big layout, we had a back spine and 3 legs. One leg on our layout was DC. The rest of the whole layout was DCC. Our inner loop is usually the yellow line inside the layouts. Those will vary. Sometimes they are DC or DCC. It just depends on how it gets wired up. And since you're using a standardized wiring system, you hook it up to a DC controller or you hook it up to a DCC controller. It's really that simple. It really is.
But if you hook it up to a DC controller, that means you really can only run one train on the whole line, because if you put 2 on, one's going to catch up to the other one eventually, right?
Yes, but it also depends on if you want. I mean, we can take this further. You could block your DC loop, right? So you could have multiple DC controllers, which we did at Evanston. I think we had 2 or 3. So we had two trains running on the DC loop at any given time. And yeah, otherwise you kind of got to hope you have some speed match stuff and put one here and one there and kind of keep an eye on it. But again, that comes to, maybe your layout marshal who's kind of watching that leg, or the people who own those modules will pay attention. But yeah, there's all kinds of ways you can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, we had a point on that layout where we could literally flip a switch and go take our train right off of DCC into DCC to take it into a staging yard so people would be off of the other yards to pull stuff off and park away. It's a little bit more complicated with that wiring, but that's why you also find people who are really good at that, so you don't have to always do that. You just do your standardized stuff out of your modules, and they're 9 times out of 10, every layout's going to have a guy who's your DCC expert, who's the professional to take care of you. I'm not a DCC expert. One of Brian's club members, Jack Morash, who I mentioned earlier tonight, he is a DCC expert, and he was the guy who did Evanston for me. And when he decided to come on board the show there, it changed everything for how I was promoting that, because I no longer had to worry about finding somebody, because he's just like, Brett, I'm coming. I'm bringing everything I have. I'm bringing a couple other guys with me. I will be your DCC steward.
Nice.
We had 5 or 6 DCC command station boxes that were just set around the layout. So he ran little mini districts. Each leg was like a district of DCC, and all I had to do was make sure everybody hooked up their stuff properly. And then he checked it, he verified it, and it was flawless. I mean,
nice.
Brian, when you see him, tell him again how professional he is, because it made the T-TRAK layout of that scale.
Yeah, shout out to Brian Mills in our chat, who's another source of info. He's been answering questions and stuff. So big thanks to Brian.
Brian's a good dude.
Yeah.
This is funny. He just put a quote up, which cracks me up, because our friend Murph here belongs to a club called Silicon Valley Lines, and their late president Bernhard Beck told me one time something similar to this, but not so similar. He said, just because it can be done doesn't mean it should be done.
I see
But
that
they
a lot.
also-
I see that a lot.
Yeah, they also jump into these rabbit holes with technology, and sometimes it's more trouble than it ends up being worth in the
But
end.
it's a way to nerd out, right? To geek
Yeah.
out in the hobby. So
Yeah,
At the,
I mean, you
at
have
the
to
end
have
of
an
the day,
outlet,
if you're
right?
having fun, you're doing it right. So
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
an electronics engineer by degree, and so I tend to lean towards more the technology side of this hobby, and there's things I'm planning to do with some of my future modules that I don't think anybody's done yet, but it's my outlet to geek out and just do something wild and crazy. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, like I said earlier, scrape it off, start over with something different. Don't
Yeah.
always have to build a new module. You can use existing stuff and start over.
or use the panels, like
Or
you
use
said,
the
right?
panels. Yes. Just be a scene person. Just,
Yeah.
oh, hey, it's summer at the beginning of the show. It's winter by the end of the show. Plop, plop, plop. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
So many things you can do with T-TRAK and all modular railroad, not just T-TRAK, but yeah, but it is a good entry to start something small and easy. I mean, you with a single, with two singles and either two end plates or four corners, you can literally put up a layout for Christmas on your kitchen table and learn about T-TRAK that way. I mean, that's about the smallest you can get into the hobby with T-TRAK, to have your own layout to play with at home.
Yeah.
Versus
Right on.
going to a show or whatever. Yeah.
Nice.
well, sir.
We need some hard questions. Where's the hard questions? I need a really hard question.
I think we covered it with all your great photos to show
I think the only thing-
possibilities.
I know we did not cover this. We mentioned it, but we didn't really talk about the storage. Can we talk about the storage real fast? Because I really want to show people how
You're the one that needs
my
to
way
go.
of doing
So you let
storage.
us know, Brett.
That's okay. We can go back. My other friends will be fine.
Should we
I
take it
have
back?
it going on another.
When
I
we
have
were
it on
talking
another
about
monitor. So for storage, most of my stuff stays in my garage 300 days out of the year if I'm not at a show. A lot of people will build a module and they'll use a couple pieces of wood on the sides or the end, and they build these little stack systems to carry their modules around.
That's this one, right?
That is one way. That's overkill. That's some really thick and heavy wood. That's very well protected. That's probably pretty heavy to carry around, but that is one method of doing this. But a lot of people will just use the holes on the end there, and they will just bolt on some end plates, and you can put a little handle on a little thing, just carry them around that way. But since I keep my stuff in a garage and I live in Minnesota, so I get minus 30 to 110 degrees depending on what the garage does every year, I wanted a little bit more protection, plus bugs and things like that. So I had seen a gentleman online who was throwing a module in these tubs. So these are all 27-gallon tubs. And I took it a step further and I don't want to carry 15 tubs to a show. How can I make it work to carry less? So all I did is I put one at the very base, and then I put some dowel rods across there as a platform. So on the right, you see that's the other module that would sit on top of the lower module. So I can carry two doubles in a 27-gallon storage case. And then I put a little foam around the edge so they don't shake around. And if I have any really super tall buildings, they go in a whole separate container. But right there in that center picture, that is what I take to a show. That's all I need to take 10 to 15.
You can see in that picture on the left that the holes you drilled in the side of the tub, and then you just ran those dowels through there.
Yeah, I put a cotter pin
system.
Yep.
Yeah.
I color coded them, so I have orange, purple, yellow, so I know I don't mix them all up because they're just so it all stays uniform. Yeah, that's a simple way to do it. Some people like to stand them up on their ends, and they'll do I call it a taco style, which scares me because if they start to tip around a little bit too much, you might damage some of your stuff you've built. So I don't like that. But
I know Cheryl Rankin, who was in the photo with me and at that show. I can't remember what they use now, but that was one of the most interesting things. If you go to a show and there's T-TRAK out there, go look at I asked everybody, what did you transport those here? And let me see your storage. Let me see your transport container. Because to me, that was important as well. If I build one, I could put that on a shelf in my house somewhere, right? In a closet. But, if you get a few together, then, you might need something like a storage tub or 2 or 3, right? So
the one downfall to this using the tubs is that there's still a lot of wasted space here for if you need to pack your car tight. This will go in my car very nice, but you lose a lot of, because they're angled, they're thicker. So if you really, the people who tend to do build their own square ones with the wood, you can probably cram a lot more in a vehicle that way. I just worry about still, you hit that one pothole and something shifts.
Right.
I'm a little bit more anal about that, but
those are people that are like building and transporting like 10 of these or something, or 20.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
something.
we mentioned Jack Marash, the guys from Kansas City, and there's other people who do this. They roll up in a trailer, and their stuff comes off in carts, these big carts. They roll them out, and it's all.
How far
pick
you
it
can
up,
go
put it
with
here.
this T-TRAK?
It's bonkers. I mean, I got into it to get away from all the extra stuff, and now I'm getting to where I'm back into all that extra stuff again. Right?
Oh, you're really selling it now, Brett.
I know. But I mean, it's crazy to see the KCT nuts they are known for having these quad modules.
Yeah.
And Jack has done them in like different scenes. So like one's a whole fall scene, or one's like a whole like they have like this rock wall that you can kind of cut through the rock wall. I mean, but it's a quad. I mean, it's ginormous. I mean, you're talking 6-8 feet long, right? And that's just one module. You have to have a trailer to transport.
It's really hard when you get into a modular system to just stay with one.
It is a bug, right? You get bit. Once you do one, you want to do more.
Yeah.
And again, this will come back to the scene module for the person who does not have the room to have a whole layout, but you want to still do a bunch of different things. Just make the scenes, plop them on there, and then figure out how to store those.
Yeah.
Split Rock. I live south of the Twin Cities. I live south of the Twin Cities in Minnesota.
Yeah. The next thing you know, you're buying an Econovan.
and then a trailer.
One of my friends here in Minnesota had told me just even a few weeks ago when I was complaining that I don't have room in my car anymore. He's like, why don't you just go buy an old beat up ambulance, wrap it, put my 3D printing logo stuff on there and my clubs that I belong to, and just drive that around. I'm like, well, I could probably even fit a little bed cot in there too, and I wouldn't have to pay for hotel cots anymore.
Yeah.
You got it bad when you're sleeping in a van with your T-TRAK modules.
I mean, I don't want to. I'm not going to call any specific names, but at Evanston, there was a bunch of those Fremo guys who were camping out the whole time.
I mean,
some of them have their
can
little
get
built-in
you there, because
session,
hotels are expensive. So
the next thing you know, you're living in a van down by the river.
Oh,
yeah. So there's
Ryan Mills' wife suggested getting a hearse so you could transport your modules in a hearse. That's a good idea, actually. Smart lady.
Dave Falkenberg had the law of Fremo: never build a module bigger than your car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Said the guy with the tiniest car ever. Yeah.
So responding there to Split Rock, I am a member of the NMRA here. I don't make it to a whole lot of meetings because of my work schedule, but I am one of my best model railroad buddies is Ken Borowski here in the area. And I know Randy locally does do T-TRAK modules. And I've tried to convince him to come to events when we do them locally and bring his modules to shows, but he never seems to want to take his modules out to shows because he does some really nice modeling too. I know I think there is a meeting coming up locally, but I am busy that day and I couldn't go. And I know the Fremo guys have an open house. I think a bunch of the TCD guys were going to meet up there too. But I am a member of the NMRA. I've sat in on many of the podcasts, and I bump into people at shows and events. Yeah, Ken and I go way back. I've known Ken about 20 years. N-Scale is taking over our division. I find that fantastic.
You know who Split Rock is, right?
It's either Ken or Tom is my guess, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
Is it Tom?
Yep.
Yeah.
Tom's good on this. He's a good media guy.
Tom from the Crossing Gate podcast for everybody out there. Yeah.
Yeah, he does this very well. When the guys are doing the lives like we are now or the recorded sessions, I think Tom is fantastic. I think it's probably the number one podcast in the NMRA if you had to ask me, and not just because I live near here. It just they're that good. Those guys are good.
It seems like Split Rock too is pretty open to people visiting his own layout, Split Rock Mining. So
yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to do that yet, but maybe when they do another open sometime, I'll just get in Ken's back pocket and follow him around.
Sounded like Murph had a question.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the ice cream truck going by was coming over the feed.
Oh man, send it my way.
Nope.
I could go for some ice cream right now.
Oh, okay.
Can't hear it. That sounds good though.
That sounds like a good idea for a T-TRAK module, because you could have some fun audio on a little whimsical layout and have like a parade going on. Kids would love that because they'd hear that. The parents might not like that. They're going to be thinking, "Well, we got to go find some ice cream now." But
Yeah. Speaking of whimsical and
do
women,
anything like that, the thing you have
I'm
to
sorry,
watch out
Murph?
for is if you're manning the show all day long and it's on a loop, you will go nuts.
Yes.
I was going to say,
There-
speaking
there-
of
there are plenty
whimsical and women in the hobby, Teresa Goff, who's in Estes Park, Colorado, and her husband Steve, she does T-TRAK modules, and hers were, I think, the first ones that I saw at a show. And
I wish they would have been in
all
Evanston.
of hers each very specifically scenic with a theme. One she did that was really great was a bicycle race. Little N scale people
were
on
they
bicycles.
animated?
That's a lot
Did
of
the
teeny
wheels
tiny
turn?
bicycles. Yeah.
They would go around. Did the wheels turn too? They'll put them
I
on the
don't-
track underneath, and they go around
Yeah.
and fall like a magnet. Yeah, I've seen people do that. It's fantastic.
So if anybody
Yeah.
is in the Colorado area, the Rocky Mountain Train Show that occurs twice a year, Teresa might be at one of those shows, and she's definitely somebody to check out the modules that she creates, or check out the show that's in Estes Park every year. That is a great train show. So
Yeah, I think
shout out.
There's always a big show in Denver too. I don't know if they go to that show or not, but Denver always has a good
Rocky
in-scale
Mountain
turnout
Train Show
for the
in
Rocky Mountain
Denver.
Train Show. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the next one they're going to have is in November, and I think their fall or winter one happens in Loveland. So, but people can find
It's
out.
a little smaller too.
I think it's a little
Yeah.
smaller, and I
Yeah.
think they have a website. If you search on Google for Rocky Mountain Train Show, you can find it. The guy who
It's a great.
yeah, the people who run those shows are really great. So
A lot of the people who run the big shows are pretty good. They got a lot of experience. I mean,
They do all that work for us. How great is that?
Yeah, I know. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So much
Cool.
fun.
well,
I probably will get going here soon. Any more questions?
I
know
don't
you guys
think
are gonna
so.
throw up
We're just getting,
the link stuff, but yeah.
haven't seen any
I can't think
more
of it.
questions popping up. So
Nothing crazy. Nobody with a hard question. I'm good. I'm happy.
we'll save the hard questions for next time. We'll have you come on and talk again some other time.
I would love to come back and talk about something else. I mean, whatever. You pick a topic, I'm here. I love to chat. So we'll find, maybe we talk about this up here. Maybe we can talk about some sports.
Well,
Sports and model railroading. How do we tie that together?
Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with a way.
Dave Hammer says he's going to be at Train Fest. So I will be at Train Fest and probably Mad City. So Dave, you have to look around the T-TRAK section. If you see me, come give me a handshake and say hi. Everybody else who happens to be out there too. I know for sure at Mad City. Train Fest, I'm on the fence. My boss has not wanted me to take that weekend off, but I'm working on him.
Darn.
But
That
they will have
way
good
of
T-TRAK layouts
Train
there to see. Those guys from Wisconsin and some of the Chicago guys that come up to both those shows, they'll put on a good T-TRAK layout. Justin from I don't know where Justin's from, whatever little town he lives in. He's the coordinator, I believe, for Mad City this year, maybe even Train Fest now. But he does his own thing with T-TRAK. Like, he is one of those guys who will he'll like, okay, here's the T-TRAK end, but from here back, it's whatever I want to do. And he's got this ginormous end cap, we'll call it. It's like a mining facility.
Wow.
Coal mining facility, and it's just, as I've seen it each time, and it's getting more and more put onto it. I can't wait to see it the next time. It's fantastic.
Well, it's kind of like, it's good to know the rules and have the specifications and standards, so you know how you can break them, right?
Yeah.
Like, how can you
again,
work outside those and push the envelope of the standard,
Yep.
right?
And again, go to the nrail.org website, go to the info links, go to the standards. You know, if you want to know the full history of where all this started from, there's a whole big print out there. I won't even touch on it other than thanks to Lee Fitzgerald for bringing it back from Japan. Basically, that's we owe it all to her. And then, of course, all the other sites that are out there too. I mean, you have the original T-TRAK group on Facebook, and then you have the official T-TRAK group on Facebook from the INRAIL organization. Paul Musselman, who was one of the very first people to adopt T-TRAK, has the I think you guys have that link. I think I put it in there too. He has a lot of cool information that's out of the norm, and building some weird modules. The T-TRAK wiki is just a great repository of a lot of photos that are organized by the people who built them and maybe the size of the module or where they're from. And then the opposite of that, you have, InRail, where we have just all the clubs that we know about that are members, InRail members. And, and I got to say, Zoom Track, please come once a month and watch the Zoom Track we put out every month for our product with not necessarily live like this per se with the interaction, but we get some really good ideas and presenters that bring some really cool stuff to the in-scale community there.
Cool.
And of course, thank you to TSG for having me. It's been wonderful. It was a pleasure when I just happened to bump into you guys with cameras in my face in Evanston, and now look what it's turned into. So thank you guys very much for letting me be the person to come speak to everybody, and just being excited about what T-TRAK is. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, Brett.
Really appreciate it.
I mean, if this reaches 50 people that didn't know about T-TRAK once before, we're in the green.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then of course, this will go. How long till it goes? We're live tonight. When will it go as a normal recording? Is that it will be the same? Will it be the same link so I can share the link and?
Yeah, it processes though, John, for a couple hours, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it processes, but people can watch it right away. You can share the link whenever you want to. And one other thing I'm going to tell you, it's a behind the scenes thing. The E24 layout tour is the next one up in my editing, chores. So I'll be seeing you soon. You won't see me, but
yeah. You'll be seeing me soon. Make sure when you finish that, you let Lee Calkins know too, because he's been keeping a repository on of all the E24 related links and videos. So he'll get that added to the list for people who go looking. So make sure you reach out to him too.
He'll be one of the first people to see it. It's not going to release for the public until sometime early next year, if I remember right. But I'll definitely be giving him a little sneak peek of it as the guy.
There better be some awesome graphics built in. They're gonna have some special effects.
Yeah, I'm gonna have you looking like a Jedi, so you'll appreciate that.
Oh, well, I'm more of a Sith, so here. Let me.
Okay. I mean, we'll make some heavy breathing then, But
this guy watches over me all the time on my desk, so.
Sure. And I do want to mention, Tom is asking, if you can post in the comments where to get the supplies and all that. What I'm going to do is once we're done here, and it may take me a couple hours to get to it because I have to eat still, but I'm going to go back into our video description below this video on YouTube, and I'll put all the links that were on that page on the presentation that had all the links. I'll put all that stuff.
I covered most of what needed to be covered on there. And then once you get to those links, you'll find other links to other things too. So materials, vendors, whatever. Michael coming up with the last minute question. Is TRAK a suitable substitute for Kato? Yes and no. No in the fact that it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't easily connect right to the Kato, but I could be wrong there. The standard is to use Kato, but once you get your Kato end on each end of the module, inside of there, you can convert to whatever you need to do. I know the TRAK is known for having very sharp corners, very sharp curve, things, some very small turnouts. So that is good for that. So once you convert to Tomix inside your module, you're good as long as your Kato on the ends going out.
Right on.
Yeah. Awesome time. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for all the questions tonight. I really appreciate that. And again, to you guys, thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting InRail come on, and me for being today's spokesperson for our organization.
Thanks for coming, Brett. We really appreciate your time.
I had a good time. I didn't get nervous once. I was all excited.
Oh, good. Well, then we did our job. If you've had fun.
Well, you guys are easy to talk to. So I've done a few of these here and there over the years where the people on the other end they don't give and take with you. So it's like, you don't know, you're talking to a board, and I'm not an actor, so I'm not good at talking to green screen tennis balls. So having feedback from you guys it makes it easier for me too.
Cool. Well, we always endeavor to have a conversation.
Like a big hug.
Yeah. It's an e-hug.
E-hug.
Exactly. Well, hopefully we can get you guys to come further west on some of your travels. Are we going to get to see you at Train Fest or anything like that? Do you guys come that far?
Well, if we go any further west, we'll be in the ocean. I think you meant east, but yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got my hat on like this tonight. I'm not thinking right now.
We should go
further east. Further east, yes. Because I know when we had met, you mentioned you guys, you travel a lot, but I don't know how far east you guys actually go.
Well, we've gone as far east so far as probably Colorado, I think is the furthest east that we've gone on any of our trips. I would like to get further east. I mean, train trips, right?
Yeah. For model railroad
We have
stuff,
some-
Train Fest would be a good one.
Yeah, we have some thoughts about possibly getting out to Kansas at some point because Sydney has family in Kansas that we can stay with. That's
There
the
you
real hang up is lodging is so expensive and
Yeah.
travel is pretty expensive, but lodging is the killer. Lodging and
Yeah.
renting a car is costs
It does
nominal.
catch up to you. I really missed going to Altoona this year. Traveling out of Minnesota, Delta has such a monopoly here that even when they lower their prices, they're still too high priced. And the competitive airlines, you spend 12 hours connecting all over the country to get to your destination. And I can't.
Yeah.
I did the 16-hour trip already this year. I don't need to do another one. So I couldn't go to Altoona, which really upset me. But flying out to Amherst, you can travel with T-TRAK modules. People do it. You package it well and put it in your suitcase or one of those containers, capsule it up real good. You can take them to a show. You don't have to be afraid. You don't always have to bring 20 modules. You can just bring one little thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be nice to have you guys come out to Train Fest and hang out there. You guys would really like that show, I think.
Yeah, I think we'd like most shows. It's just a matter of getting out there. So and it'll probably happen eventually. One of the things, though, I should mention this. I put the little banner up on the bottom of the screen, and I'm so bad at promoting this. I'll mention it now, and this is kind of off topic for you, Brett. But
I'm reading it.
For people watching, if you want to help us get out to shows like that, you can sign up as patrons on Patreon. That's a little thing that we have where you can give a little bit of money each month to help us do what we do. Because this is our job. We don't have other jobs. And one of the very first people to ever sign up for Patreon is sitting next to me for Patreon. I remember I talked to Murph before I started the Patreon presence or page or whatever you call it. And he says, "Oh, you should do that. I'll sign up." And I thought, yeah, sure you will. So I'm like, okay, well, he talked me into it. So I did it. And then he signed up. It was like magic.
I think
I have to admit, I am not on any Patrons. It's kind of I know it's been around for a little while now, but I've never really looked into what those are. So I will give you guys a check out because I know you have a lot of product out there. So I'd like to see what I can see.
I do 6 or 7 different Patreons of things that I find myself on YouTube or whatever watching sometimes, almost every day, sometimes once every week or something like that. It's kind of like, okay, I would pay for this kind of quality content.
Yeah, I've had people ask me on my 3D printing business if I have a Patreon, and I've never, I use Etsy, and I think if you're gonna, as a 3D printer, I think you'd want to put out something on a very regular basis. You'd have to put out something like once every couple of weeks, once a month, and with my career and just all the other stuff I'm involved in, that's a lot of time away that I don't have. So
yeah,
but I think
I was going to say it's not for everyone. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go check it out because I as well as this is all gone, but I expect that product to be just as good. So I'm gonna check it out.
It's a great way to support the people that you like, whatever they produce, whether that's an artist or a musician. There's all those kinds of people on Patreon now, so that you can support. It's a little like paying for your Netflix or whatever.
Okay,
like
yeah.
This is something else that you enjoy. So
yeah, I basically cut the cord as far as doing actual cable service and get everything off the internet. So it's just kind of like, this is another thing I watch a lot.
Yeah.
So
that's my thought.
Especially the shows that he's on. He watches those over and over and over.
I put that on loop.
Yeah.
You have one of those rubber duckies that taps the keyboard to keep your clicks going. You get all those viewer clicks with an automated rubber ducky.
Yeah.
Oh man, we got 1 million views today because Murph's got his little thing clicking.
Yeah, people are stuck at my house, Clockwork Orange style. The whole
man,
it's awful.
Oh man.
Meanwhile, someone's at YouTube going, "What's this one IP address? I watched this show 1,000 times last night."
Right. Oh man. All right. Well, I am gonna go. Thank you again.
Right.
Again to all the viewers. Thank you as well. It's been fantastic. And go T-TRAK.
Thanks, Brett. We'll talk to you sometime.
See you guys. Bye.
See you later.
Bye. All right. And then there were just 2 of us left. Well, 2 boxes.
3 of us. Yeah.
There's 3 of us, but there's 2 little boxes. 2 out of 3 ain't
So
bad.
Sid,
What were your guys' impressions about T-TRAK?
I'm just curious. Have you assembled one of these, the box module things yet?
I have two from two different vendors that I'm dying to assemble and start working on. We just need to stop going out and filming stuff so I can do that.
Well, hopefully in the slower season. How does that
Yes.
work? Is it really slower?
It
Kind
is
of.
actually.
Kind of.
Okay.
It depends what's happening though, because I have a hard time saying no to most things.
I was going to say, when we're getting into open house season, do you ever
Yeah.
get around to open houses and things like that?
Sure we do.
Which would, of course, take even more time. Anyway, I do appreciate that. I'm just curious. When I did Fremo, we had to make our own bench work, and it was really easy to mess up the end plates so that they weren't quite totally square this way. And Fremo is held together by clamps at the end plates. And if you got one that had one of these things, the other module ended up getting kind of like its end plate warped, and it was just kind of a mess. So it looks like
these look like the kind of puzzle piece bits, like that kind of join in together. And so I think it looks like there's a little more support on keeping that a vertical surface, a plane to connect.
Yeah. Looking at your kit, I was like, oh, I see how this works. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, something easy to try though, I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, I got my kit for like $50 or whatever. So
yeah,
I think we might end up making a video about it.
That'd be cool.
About putting these things together. So, but it's another one of these projects. It's a project, and it could be a video project, which means the project itself takes twice as long.
So I'm kind of curious, when you get one of these modules put together, does this mean we get to see more for the Friday N scale things than just bare T-TRAK in front of a backdrop?
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yes.
That would be really cool.
All the pressure.
Nice.
All the pressure.
Hey, Nick's reminding us that, yes, we're busy because we have the SBHRS at the Santa Clara Depot. They have their open house twice a year, and the fall one's coming up the beginning of November. Plus, I have exciting news, guys. Caltrain's electrification launch party, where they go fully electric, right, in all their service, which they've been doing kind of spot bits here and there. Well, they go fully electric this Saturday. So they're having parties at all their stations, both days of the weekend, and we're going to have a little shindig over at Santa Clara Depot. So spread the word if you live in the area. Riding on Caltrain Saturday and Sunday is free. So hop on and ride it somewhere, have some lunch there, ride it back. I mean, why not try it out and see if it'll work for people as a commute option, even if it's just hey, it's Saturday, let's ride up to Burlingame and have lunch up there, that kind of thing. So that's where we're going to be this weekend, and I'm super excited about it. So
that's really cool.
I should also mention before we go, because we're about to go, that this weekend, and it kind of feeds in, I didn't do this on purpose. It was kind of quite by coincidence here, but this weekend, the featured presentation on Saturday is all about micro trains up in Talent, Oregon. We went up there a couple of months ago and had a full tour of their factory where they make N-scale rolling stock and even some locomotives. They make all kinds of stuff, and they sell accessories as well. So that's coming out this Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Micro trains, how it's made in the USA.
Super fun footage. If people enjoy those videos online, the kind of how it's made kind of in a factory stuff.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that kind of footage, and it's really super interesting. They make everything there. They have all the special equipment. It's just amazing. I really enjoyed that tour.
Yep. That was a really fun thing that we did this past summer, and the video is coming out on Saturday. So make sure you join us. Is there anything else?
Look,
yeah.
Our kid is in the chat.
So
they are?
I hate for being a little bit.
Oh,
hey,
she's probably waiting for a ride home.
So a little bit of a sad note. Dave Farts died recently, and he was quite a mentor in this area. a real big champion of the hobby, had a wonderful layout that you guys did a video on a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Please go look at it. It's a real great tribute to the work Dave did on his layout and that kind of thing, and a really great person.
Yeah.
So
He was known across the United States. He's part of a group of people that did operations for the people that like to travel back and forth across the United States, attending these big ops type
Invitational
weekends or
operation
meets.
events.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so
he's not
in case-
just our local legend. He's a well-known guy, and yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
Amazing layout.
in case anyone's interested, that layout to our video came out, I think, on August 10th. Does that sound about right?
yeah,
And
Yeah.
and if you search for it here on YouTube, you should be able to find it. It's called Cumberland West. And if I think of it when I'm putting the links into the description here later, I'll try to include one for that too. It was a really cool layout, and the really, I guess, kind of weird thing about it is, as I'm speaking, completely gone. And
Yeah.
it was here only a couple of months ago, but
Yeah.
Dave, went to the great caboose in the sky, and his layout had to be dismantled. It was actually dismantled when he was still here.
yeah.
And it was almost like he was waiting to go to the great caboose after the layout was fully dismantled.
And it was
a
two
well-planned.
railroads.
Go
It
ahead,
was two railroads on one layout. There was
Yeah.
the Western Maryland and there was the B&O, correct?
I think it was yeah.
Yeah, and really fascinating. So anyway, take a look. Worthwhile. Good guy.
Dave Hammers put the links in our chat. Thanks, Dave.
Oh,
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks,
But
Dave.
yeah, our thoughts are we think about Dave Parks and all of his close friends. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had to miss a little get together that they had this evening, actually.
to
So,
celebrate him, yeah.
yeah, because
So
we
we'll
had
think
this.
about him here instead.
Yeah. Well, we had I mean, I'm sure that the get together wasn't necessarily a somber thing anyway. I'm sure they
No.
had great times talking about memories of Dave, and we had great times talking about T-TRAK.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So, all right. Well, that will do it for us this time. Thanks to everybody for watching, and of course for to our moderators who help keep the chat on track. See what I did there?
Oh, that's wow.
And help inform our moderators and our other guests and stuff. The guests are always good about answering questions that the rest of us either haven't gotten to yet or don't know the answer to. So
you were
everybody
talking
in
and
the
I didn't
chat,
hear
it's
any
always
of what you
so
said
nice.
because we were talking at the same time.
Sorry.
It wasn't your fault. What did you say?
I said the people in the chat are great too because they do lots of answering questions
Oh, of course.
that the rest of us don't know. I'm just giving a shout out to all the chat people. So thanks,
Very cool.
everybody.
Yeah.
Well, let's just thank everybody.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. All right. Here comes the music, and we're going away now. Take
Have
care,
a good
everybody.
evening, everybody. See you next time.